On this Q&A episode of Rock School Proprietor Podcast, Mandy and I tackle a messy situation one studio owner is dealing with. She's got an amazing instructor working for her, but recently he seems to be the source of communication problems, scheduling challenges, and now he wants to also teach at another studio. There's a lot to unpack here. Stay tuned. I want to tell you about my book, Complete Guitar Strumming. When I first started teaching guitar, I had no training at all. On my first day, the shop owner said, "Here's the room, your first student's in 10 minutes. And that was it. I went directly to using method books with students because I was looking for structure, not just in the way I was teaching students, but how to teach. But I felt the standard method books just didn't cut it, especially when it came to teaching rhythm and strumming. I ultimately developed my own exercises for students, but more importantly, a process to teach. Refining all of that over the years, I compiled it into Complete Guitar Strumming. It's a straightforward, scaffolded approach to teaching rhythm, strumming, and timing. The book is literally everything I wish I had when I started. For instructors, the book comes with a free instructor companion guide and training videos. Visit rockschoolproprietor.com/book for all the details or to order copies for your studio. Welcome to Rock School Proprietor Podcast. My name's John Kazicki.
And I'm Mandy York.
Mandy, we are in the middle of back to school and feeling it.
It's a crazy time, right?
Yeah. And we just had like a full weekend, 2 full days of concerts at the Rock School this past weekend, and that rolls right into like back to school for some kids, and like other districts are like next week, and then we've got our new band sessions that's starting, and like I just want a day off.
Yes. They'll all be back in school soon, John.
Yeah.
Right? You get like a little breather and then off and running.
Yeah,
that's how I feel.
You know, it's funny. I don't remember what episode it was, but I remember last year we had almost the exact same like interaction at this time, right? Where we're just like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Yeah.
We need to get back to school. We need to get back to our routines.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm good because my kids are those kids that started a week early.
Yeah.
So they started this week. It's Wednesday. So this is my time to, get caught up on some things, get into my new schedule, and then I'll start my teaching semester next week.
Yeah. My own kids go back to school next week, and I got one starting middle school and the other one's in high school. It's just, it's a lot.
Yeah.
But all that said, we are going to do a Q&A episode today, and it's been a while since we've done a Q&A.
Mm-hmm. I love these, though. I love when listeners phone in.
Right, yeah, right in. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah, and I think the last couple times we did this, we just kind of had a basic topic, right? It was like, hey, this is what's going on. What advice can you give us? And I want to say one was like transitioning from mostly private lessons to groups. The other one was about, I think it was like behavior management and bands. So like kind of more general topics. This one is, I feel like, way more specific. And
very specific and detailed.
Right. And there's a lot of like interconnected parts. So we thought, well, let's just read the email that we got, and we'll just go from there.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to read the email.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. And so hold on and
because it's kind of lengthy.
Like John said, there's lots of detail here. All right. Dear Mandy and John, I'd love your advice on how to handle a difficult situation with one of my instructors. This teacher has been with me for 3 years. He's a strong instructor, and his students have generally stayed with him, which is why I've overlooked some ongoing issues. His biggest flaw has been poor communication. For example, if I text him about something important, I might not hear back for 4 days, or not at all. Sometimes these messages are as simple as asking whether he wanted to take on a new student. Because of this, I eventually stopped offering him additional students, and he never asked for more hours. Last month, he asked me to be a reference for another school he was applying to. When I asked if this new job would interfere with his schedule with me, he assured me it would not. However, when I spoke with that school, they told me he hadn't mentioned which days he already worked for me. That raised a red flag, but I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. More recently, we sat down to confirm his fall schedule. He guaranteed he was set for the whole school year, and I even checked with parents so that they could schedule other activities around piano lessons. Then out of the blue, he texted that he could no longer teach on one of his scheduled days. I worked tirelessly to move students to a different day he said he was available, only for him to tell me the next day that he couldn't do that day either. I tried calling him, but he didn't answer. When I texted to express how unprofessional this was making me look to parents, he replied that he was too busy to talk. After that, he went silent again. Meanwhile, I've since learned that one of my former students, who is officially discontinuing lessons with my school, is now taking private lessons with him outside of my studio. At this point, he still has 2 other teaching days with me, but he is ignoring my attempts to resolve the scheduling issue. Parents are calling, frustrated, asking when their kids' lessons will happen. I feel stuck. What's the smart way to approach this? Should I cut ties with him altogether? Try one more time to salvage the relationship? I've never had this problem with other teachers who all communicate well, so I'm at a loss. Signed, Ghosted and Roasted by a no-show joker.
Oh,
man,
boy.
Yeah, that's a lot, right?
Right.
I feel for this studio owner.
I know. And there's just there's so many things in this one that just, yep, had that come up. Oh, yep, had that come up. Yeah, that one. And I guess I'm trying to figure out where to start.
Yeah, right.
Right. Because one of the triggers, and I know this is big with studio owners, is okay, here's this instructor who works for our friend here's studio, and then they're going to get another teaching job at another studio, right? And then that's okay, well, is it a direct competitor? And I know some studios have clauses where you can't teach someplace else if you're teaching for our studio. And then there's the communication stuff. But then at the same time, our friend here says that he's a good instructor otherwise, but the communication. And so, I don't know. What do you think? Where do we start with this one, Mandy?
There are a lot of things here. Some of which I've dealt with, others that I have not. To me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, kind of the big thing here is that balance between him teaching for you, but now working at another studio.
Okay.
Right? I don't, in my line, in my area and with the early childhood, I don't have a lot of competition around. So I don't have other early childhood programs, taking teachers away from me.
Yeah.
I know that you have a pretty, what I think, healthy approach to this, where you're okay with your teachers working other places.
Yeah.
I assume, as long as there's good communication.
Yeah. So my take on that is I honestly, I try and look at it from the perspective of my instructors. And, my take on it is if I can provide them with full-time work, then I would expect full-time commitment, right?
Yes.
But if I am only able to provide them, or they only want to work part-time, well, then I feel like I really need to respect their ability to make a living, and because that's why they're working for me in the first place, is so, they can teach and make money. And that's that balance when you're working with musicians, because some of them are gigging and doing session work and whatever. And so the teaching, they work into their schedule. But yeah, my thing is if I can't provide someone with full-time work, then I shouldn't expect them to be exclusive to my studio. Now, that said, do I necessarily want them working for a direct competitor that's maybe 2 miles down the street? I think No, we've got to have a conversation about that. Do I want them to come to work for me and I put in a bunch of work to build up their schedule and then they decide like, okay, thanks, I'm going to go take these students and teach them privately at my house now? Certainly not, right? There's not much I could do to control that necessarily, but I think that does circle back to the communication thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
expectations. So,
Right. Because to me, reading this, that is the biggest red flag that I see.
okay.
That it seems this studio owner has tried to build up their schedule.
Yeah.
But hasn't gotten anywhere because of communication issues. And then they're working at another studio.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I might be kind of harsh and say, you know what, this relationship is not salvageable. Like,
I think that's in my notes. That's in my notes here too.
Mm-hmm.
I think our friend has to decide, at this point, is this relationship worth saving? You know, is it worth retaining this instructor, or is it time to cut ties? I don't know. And it wasn't clear with this instructor going to work at a different studio where that studio was, right? We don't know if that's like 2 towns over or what the deal is. That's kind of unclear. So in that respect, we kind of can't really say. But yeah, this is the kind of thing where that's, in my mind, the first question: is it worth retaining this instructor?
Mm-hmm. That's a hard question to ask yourself because, I don't know, I think the easy answer is to kind of put up with all of this back and forth, you know, and uncertainty, because they are still teaching a couple days a week. But it seems like the risk has just been elevated, right? This person is teaching, you know, you've lost a student from your school that they're now teaching privately outside of your school.
Yeah.
I think it's a really hard conversation to have with yourself, and you need to make the pros and cons list to decide if it's worth keeping them on.
Yeah. And that's, I guess, right. That's the first question. And if it's time to cut ties, then it's time to cut ties. But in examining if it's worth retaining this instructor, well, then you do have to kind of start like a real dialogue, because from that instructor's perspective, we don't know anything. We don't have any of that information, but he was looking for work at another studio. We don't know why, right? Is he looking for work because he had, some time open up and like he wants to, fill up his schedule elsewhere? Is he looking for a different environment to teach in, like a different style of studio? Is he looking for an exit strategy from our friend here's studio? And we don't know why. It could be like, if that's the case, well, I mean, maybe his focus has changed. Maybe the direction that the studio is going is not the way he wants to go. We have no idea, right? But if our friend here does decide to open up that dialogue, I think it has to be done in sort of a friendly way.
In a curious way, like you're describing.
Yeah.
Right? Tell me more. Why are you seeking, employment at an additional studio? And trying to find out what this instructor needs.
Yes.
Totally.
Yeah.
They need more information before making a decision.
Right.
And what else would you be curious about too?
Well, honestly, I would just want to know, in that exploratory process of figuring out, is it worth retaining this instructor? I mean, unless it's to the point where like, nope, this is not worth it. This is just not worth my time. This is not worth my hassle. We're done. Fine. So be it. But if it's like, okay, I got to figure this out, whether I do want to cut ties or I want to keep this instructor, I would start with something like, hey, this process of scheduling the students recently felt really clumsy. why don't we get together for coffee soon and we can talk about like streamlining the process, and you're a great instructor and I want to make sure that I'm giving you as much work as I possibly can. So what do you think? You want to have coffee next week? And then the intention is use that as a starting point.
Yes.
Use that to open up the discussion about everything else, right? This is where it's tough because I think our friend here feels a little bit raw. In her letter, she mentioned she put all this work in and then nothing, and she feels like she's made a fool of with the students and the parents, and that's a blow to the ego there too. And then like depending on how we spiral into that, then there's the questions about like, are these parents going to think I don't know what I'm doing running my studio, and is there truth in that? Maybe a touch. I think we probably exaggerate that kind of thing in our own head, right? Because we're so hypercritical of how we run our businesses. But yeah, going back to kind of how to open up that discussion, I think we have to sideline all those, our own inner thoughts and like bad feelings, and approach this from a perspective of, I need to find out what's going on. And in order to do that, I can't be on the attack with my
totally.
instructor,
Yep.
And I honestly need to figure out what's going on with this instructor, and if there is a future for us together or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So be curious, and the mission is to find their motivation.
Yeah.
For why they're making these changes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Step one in trying to dig into the pros and cons list and whether or not it's worth it.
Yeah.
I mean, would you also zoom out a little bit and take a look at how long that they have been with you and the quality of their work and their retention? We don't have that information either from this letter.
I don't think we have specifics, do it, but wasn't it 3 years? I believe 3 years with the studio.
Oh, that's significant.
Yeah, 3. I think
you're right.
I think it's 3 years. Otherwise, great instructor. Now, yeah, we don't know what that means for retention, but it sounds like otherwise great instructor, 3 years. So there's some longevity there, but the communication, right? So now that's the next big thing.
Yeah. So these other small red flags that have led up to this.
Yeah. And our friend here mentioned that communication with this instructor has always been a challenge. Mm-hmm. And I think she also mentioned that she doesn't have those problems with her other instructors. Mm-hmm. That's a tough one. We don't have a whole lot of information on that. We don't know, is this communication problem purely one-sided and purely from that instructor's side? Or are there things that our friend here could do to streamline communication on her side? Mm-hmm. Man, but let me tell you, I mean, I'm even going through that myself right now.
Yeah.
Where I feel like just some communication processes that we have in place and have had in place in my studio for a while just aren't working as well as they have in the past. And I'm seeing like, and this is where it's tough because I think these things that worked in the past and it was great. But as things have evolved, now I'm in the process of sort of reevaluating how we communicate. And, the studio has grown and it's changed and it's evolved. We have to always look at those systems and figure out, do we need to adjust? And in my situation, honestly, I feel like I haven't done that enough in the recent past. And now I'm like, I got a lot to fix here, because it's just not running the communication is just not as smooth as I'd like it.
Is that your mode of communication or frequency, or what is the hang up for you?
All of the above. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah.
So, well, okay. Our friend here mentioned texting. Mm-hmm. And I think with communication, and this is, again, it's ever evolving, right? Like there are so many channels for communication and everyone seems to have their favorites, right? I like to communicate like this. I like to communicate like this. Like some people, like I still like to use the phone for certain things, and some people would look at me like, ew, the phone. Like you mean you talk to people, right? Some people like WhatsApp. Do you use WhatsApp?
Not unless I'm out of the country.
Right? Yeah.
Right?
I don't use WhatsApp. Everyone uses texting. But like, here's the thing with texting, right? Like, I wake up at 6 a.m. every day. And, I don't always start my workday at 6 a.m. But there are times I'm like, 6 a.m., time to get to work, right?
Yeah, knock out some emails.
Instructors.
That's me, right?
Right? Yeah. My instructors, some of them don't get out of bed until like, noon.
Sure.
They don't want me to text them at 6 a.m. No. And I don't want them to text me at 10 p.m. Right? So there's a mismatch there. And that's just like one instance of like a mismatch in communication because there are so many channels. You could also talk about like text is convenient, it's quick, and that's great. But it's also, I think, that stuff can be easily lost. If I get a text from one of my instructors at like, I don't know, 5 o'clock.
Pickup.
Yeah, there you go.
That was that for me. It was like if I get stuff at school pickup time, it's lost.
Yeah, if I get something from my instructor at 5 o'clock on a Saturday, right? Because they thought like, ooh, I got to remind John of this, or I got to tell John this, right? Am I going to remember that if I don't answer it right away by Monday? Probably not. Do I want to answer it at 5 o'clock on Saturday when I'm at like a kid's birthday party or whatever? No, I don't. So as convenient as that is, that stuff is easily lost, right? Now I'm just on like a diatribe about
yeah, I know I could go on with this too. Yes, because this is something we're facing as we have younger instructors, and like you said, even if they're all the same age, they have different preferences.
Yeah,
on how they like to communicate.
Right.
I prefer email. I prefer to communicate through email because it doesn't matter when I send or receive them. I don't like getting texts during the weekend or in the evening. And it just gives me, it's how I do business. And I have like a very clear paper trail, I guess, right?
Yeah.
That I can go back to. Text messages get lost and they're mixed in with my daughter's messages and family and everything else. I don't like that. And like you said, you get one at 5 o'clock on a Saturday. I have screenshotted that word. I've taken a screenshot of a text message and emailed it to myself so that on Monday I could address it. Right?
Yeah.
I don't like doing that either.
Right.
I have ended up asking my teachers, like, how do you like to communicate? Now, because I don't have many, I mean, I don't know that would be something that works for you or someone with a larger studio.
Sure.
But if they like text messaging, I try to communicate that way. Sometimes I'll do both. Hey, I just sent you an email with all of these details. Here they are in a text message.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's one way to kind of get around this is being redundant. I feel like I'm that way with my clients, right? You post it on Facebook, you email it to them, and you send it in a text or a voicemail.
Yeah.
Like the redundancy of communication is annoying, but sometimes that's what we have to do.
Yeah, and you hit on this, I think, perfectly. You said you will ask your instructors how they like to communicate, but you don't have many instructors to juggle. Speaking as someone who has a staff of, about a dozen people, I've found that it's not sustainable. As things grow, right? It's just not sustainable. So, and again, this is going back to like me examining my own like communication processes currently, like as we speak. I was doing it earlier today. Now, the other problem with communication, and we'll bring it back around to our friend here and her question, when it comes to, because all these communications were through texts, with the exception of, when she requested a phone call with this instructor and he kind of ghosted her and said, I'm too busy right now. Might be a red flag. We don't know. The other big problem I have with text, and really any communication in which it is typed out, text, email, WhatsApp, whatever.
Yeah.
There's no emotion.
Tone.
Right? There's no tone. There's no nuance in speech. There's no nonverbal cues or body language. And so much of our relationships, and that's part of what we're talking about here, that relationship between our friend here and her instructor, so much of that comes from in-person interaction, from like verbal communication and being able to read what's going on here, So I think our friend here should be commended for, trying to initiate that phone call and recognizing.
Or like you said, coffee is a good way to do it.
Yeah, recognizing like, okay, texting is not working. But I think there's a couple ways to approach this too. And establishing early on and then reinforcing how we are going to communicate with our staff is pretty important in the front end, right? And there's a couple ways to approach it. I mean, you can take the hard line and you can say like, this is how we do it. If it's going to be text, I will text you. If it's related to schedule, I have to have a response from you within 12 hours or whatever that deadline is. It's incredibly important because this is related to me filling your schedule. If you do not reply to me in this time, then we're going to have a problem. You can take that hard line and say, this is the rule. You can take your approach and say like, hey, what works for you? If you've got, enough people where you can manage and be flexible. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I kind of like the hardline approach.
Yeah.
I do that. I do have an employee handbook light, just it's kind of like a contract with policies and procedures. Mm-hmm. Communication is in there. And not in the handbook do I say like you have to respond within 2 days, but it's kind of a case-by-case basis. I make sure I'm really clear in my communications where I say, this is what's coming up. This is what I need. Here are the options. Please let me know by Friday. Mm-hmm. Like getting in the habit of doing that is really great. It's really helpful because I'll even whereas before, because I have had issues with this, I have had teachers where I was just sending them a email or a message and not hearing back and thinking, are they ignoring me? Are they not getting my message? What is it? But when I put in like a deadline, I've noticed I'll get a reply right away sometimes that'll say, sounds great. I have to check this and this, and I'll get back to you. Do you know what I mean?
Like, yeah. The reply is like a non-reply.
Yes. But I know that they just want to let me know that like, I got this and I'm going to work on it and I will get back to you. I think that's important. Like being in the habit of putting those deadlines into your communication. And, you can go even like zoom out a little bit more. I'm semester based. So we always have like the schedules have to be set by the 7th week of each preceding semester kind of thing, so that employees know like I'll have my fall schedule by this day. And this is when I have to have things figured out instead of, 2 weeks before fall. Like, oh, when are we going to figure out that schedule?
Yeah.
It's in the calendar and there are deadlines for that.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. One thing, I don't think I mentioned this, because I do it with parents a lot. Because with my parents, if a parent gets my email or my phone number for some reason.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Oh, I hate when that happens. And they start texting me. And I usually, what I do, if I get a text message from a parent, like I email them back.
Brilliant.
Is that all? I just email them back?
Yeah, I would even go like one further, and I would have a standard text reply that I copy and paste that said, "Oh, hey, thanks. Can you email this to me so I can look at everything on the computer?"
I know. I think it's one of those fuzzy places we're in because we're so familiar and so like loving, and we have a great community. It's like I don't want anyone to feel slighted, but
yeah, of course.
Don't text me.
Right.
But anyway, I always email parents, but occasionally if it's something more time sensitive, I have a text messaging service that I can blast out a text to the parents also that simply says, check your email.
Yeah, right.
Like, kind of a thing.
Yes.
So maybe that's something that could, if you have a larger staff, like get it out through email, all the details and whatever needs to be sent, and then have that blast. Hey, team, emails went out this morning. Make sure you check it and get back to so-and-so.
Yeah.
It's an option.
Yeah. Well, I think for our friend here
yes, back to our friend. We really went off on that.
Well, but I think all of this is important because clearly communication it's important for all of our businesses and everything that we do.
And that's like what's at the root of this issue here.
Yes. Yeah, that is at the root. But to kind of give our friend here, bullet points of at least what I think you and I think and believe in solving this problem is, number one, she has to make that decision. Is this instructor worth keeping, or is this instructor not worth keeping? If this instructor is not worth keeping, we're done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Almost. I'm going to come back to that. If the instructor is worth keeping, well, then I say exploratory mode. What's going on? Why is this instructor looking for other work at another studio? What's going on with the communication? Why, is there something our friend here can do to repair this clear rift, right? Which now I think, again, comes back to that communication. But in doing that, in person, for sure. Coffee.
Yes.
She has to be genuine. She has to want to understand what's going on so that the two of them can decide, is this not just one-sided worth our friend here keeping this instructor on, but is this relationship going to be sustainable for that instructor as well?
I think it's important what you said earlier too, is to put aside the emotions.
Yeah.
At this step too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either way, whether this instructor stays with our friend's studio or moves on, it does sound like examining communication and setting clear guidelines is going to be needed. And again, case in point, I'm going through this myself too, right? Like I'm trying to improve my internal communication in my studio just because things change. What's worked up to this point just isn't working as smoothly now. So we've got to course correct, set clear expectations, and decide how is this all going to work. So,
yep.
There you go.
Yes. Best of luck. It's not easy.
Yeah. So giving a big hug to our friend here, because it's a tough one. I've been there, and wishing her the best.
Definitely.
Any more words, Mandy, or
right.
we taking this one out?
No, yeah, that's a wrap.
All right. Well,
yep. Thanks for writing in. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we love hearing these things, and hopefully we can help with any problems that studio owners are going through. It kind of helps me to work through my own stuff too. So,
yes, it's always good to talk through these things.
All right. Well, with that, we'll wrap it, and we'll see you next time on Rock School Proprietor Podcast. Thanks, Mandy.
See you later, John.
Bye. If you have topic suggestions or questions, please contact us at info@rockschoolproprietor.com. We'd love to hear from you and hear suggestions for future shows. We've put together some free resources for teachers and studio owners over at rockschoolproprietor.com and a private Facebook group called The Modern Music School. Please join us over there. On social, I'm at rock.school.proprietor on Instagram and John Kazicki on both LinkedIn and Blue Sky. Your ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify are always appreciated. And if you enjoyed the show and gain insight from our conversation, then we count that as a win. All we ask in return is that you pay it forward and please share the show with someone you think needs to hear it.